thank you so much for joining us. Always very happy to have you here. I'm Dr. Margot Jacot, your mental health business mentor, and I'm really glad to have our guest today. Let me tell you about Carah Elizabeth. Carah Elizabeth is a clinically trained psychotherapist turned trauma-informed coach. I want to hear about that for sure because some of our listeners are curious about other forms of work, other ways of working, other income streams, changing from psychotherapy to coaching. So this is great. You empower high achieving women to break free from the limitations of generational patterns and lead their lives with embodied confidence, self-trust, and soul-powered abundance. Who doesn't want that? I mean, my goodness. Right. With over 20 years of experience in the mental health field, Carah blends her expertise in somatic healing, nervous system regulation, and energy work to guide women through a deeply transformative journey of reconnecting with their bodies, healing past trauma, and stepping into their true potential. My goodness. Through her signature soul-powered life method, Carah helps executives and entrepreneurs uncover the subconscious patterns that keep them stuck while providing the tools to create lasting health, wealth, and fulfillment from the inside out. I want all this. Carah's work has been described as life-changing, transformative, and deeply impactful, combining the best of science and spirit to bring lasting transformation. When she's not coaching, you'll find her deeply immersed in nature, exploring the world, and continuing her own journey of embodied healing. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to have this conversation. Welcome, Carah Elizabeth. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much, Margot. It's always a pleasure to be here with you and chatting.
Well, thank you. And I'll tell you, folks, if you can't see Carah, she is someone with a bright smile, clearly someone who loves their work. And I think we're going to have a great conversation today. So let's dive in.
Yeah, let's
So,
go.
the work that you're describing, as I'm reading that, I'm thinking, wow, and you're doing all of that on a screen. So why don't we just start there? Because, like, I think all of us, you had to make a huge shift during the pandemic. And especially with the work that you're doing, what was that transition like for you to do that with the work that you do?
Yes, absolutely. I love talking about this because we all had to pivot in 2020 when the world stopped and we all moved online. At that point, I did have a brick and mortar. I did have a private group therapy practice with 4 therapists under me. We were doing really well. We had a wait list. Our clients were really progressing and moving. And it was scary because I didn't know how this was going to work. I think a lot of us were concerned, but that shift to virtual because we had to actually opened my eyes to an entirely new way of supporting clients and realizing that I could support clients virtually around the world, not just in person in my geographical location, which
Mm.
really opened that door to expand my business and how I practiced. Because what I realized is my clients, for a number of reasons, made so much more progress in those months of virtual coaching and virtual therapy than they had sitting on my couch once a week for the years previously. And because I'm also a researcher at heart, I kind of dove into like, I wonder why this is happening. And I think a few things happened. First of all, we all had our way of life turned upside down. We had to figure things out differently. We were in isolation, a lot of us, we were in our homes, and which means we couldn't distract with our normal distractions ways of life outside of those emotions. So all of my clients were sitting in those emotions, but they were also in their comfort zone, which I feel like helped them open up deeper as well because they were in their physical surroundings that were comfortable, which allowed their nervous system to down regulate enough to then be able
Mm.
to drop in a little bit deeper and support them in moving through their trauma a little bit more quickly.
Hmm. That's such a great point, Carah. I've discovered that too because trauma has been the sort of the lane that I've been in for much of my career. It was a shocking difference because we think about, boy, if I'm doing EMDR or some other intervention, I've got to see the person or somatic experiencing. I have to be able to track their system and really see all of this fine tuning in their face and in their body. And it sounds like you've been able to figure out how to do this on a screen and find that it's even more effective because they're comfortable and they feel safe. and what a difference that makes. So that's
Absolutely.
incredible. So, in the process of shifting your work, you shifted from psychotherapy to coaching. Tell us a little bit about that journey. And do you do
Absolutely.
100% coaching now?
I do 100% coaching now. I have fully released my license in the state of Arizona to practice psychotherapy. So I am under the label of coaching at this point. And I made
Mhm.
that decision. It wasn't made easy. Anybody who's been through schooling and supervised work experience and all the hoops that you have to jump through to become a therapist knows that this is not something that you do lightly. You don't just release that license lightly. And I didn't. And for a couple years, I just had put my license on inactive status while I kind of played in the waters of coaching to see how this was going to work out before
Mhm.
fully releasing. But I ultimately made that decision, and I can only speak in Arizona. I don't know how other states do this, but in the state of Arizona, I was not allowed to do coaching and psychotherapy. So I couldn't
Mm.
even coach, even if they were outside at that time. I do think that things probably have changed. However, at that time, I wasn't allowed to. I also wasn't allowed to do some of the services that I do. So I do Reiki energy healing. I do, yoga and somatics. And those things were, I was told by my board of, excuse me, I was told by my board of behavioral health examiners that I couldn't do those things because they weren't empirically studied. And
Mhm.
so I knew that my clients who I was able to bring in yoga, I was able to bring in meditation, I was able to bring in somatics and energy work, along with my therapy skills, were moving through their trauma so much quicker. And so for me, I
Mm.
was like, I can't continue to give this much when I could give this much, like when I could give the whole spectrum of services and
Mm.
then be able to move forward. So I was like, I need to just do what I need to do that's in the best interest of my clients, which is offer them
Mhm.
everything that I do. And so to do that, I had to release my license.
Mm. Boy, good point. I mean, what a profound experience. I put my hand over my heart when you said release your license. It's something we work so hard for, and you did as well. But boy, you found that to do what you really knew worked for your clients, you needed to move on and have a different model. And so, how are you finding folks? How are you attracting clients to this kind of work? Because, boy, that's what everybody fears. Well, then, can I put it up on Psychology Today? How are people going to find me? So, how do people find you?
So you can technically still have a Psychology Today profile. I did for a period of time reactivate it and then just deactivate it again just because it wasn't advantageous for me. For me, I do everything social media wise, which is also new as well because back in the day when I was licensed, we weren't allowed to do social media. We were actually told that we could not have clients on our social media page. We were told that, we couldn't connect with people there. So it is a whole new ballgame, learning to market yourself. And that was a huge challenge. And it still sometimes is for me because I had worked so long in the field in my geographical location in Arizona. I had worked so long. I had so many contacts. I had so many referral sources. So it was shifting from not needing to market to needing to learn how to market. It was a big challenge and a big shift for me. And it's
Mm.
not always smooth sailing, but I do get a lot of referrals from other clients. I do get a lot of, doing podcasts and sharing my voice is always easier converting for me. So it's just about finding what works to help you convert
Mm.
from listeners or followers into clients and things like that. But it really
Mhm.
is about being authentic, sharing your whole truth, sharing who you are, what you do, the transformations you make, and really allowing your clients to also share that message out to have this ripple effect. And
Mhm.
for me, a lot of it is also just trusting that the people who are meant to come into my world, who are meant to be served by me, will find me one way or the other.
Right. It's an abundance mindset, and it will happen if it's meant to be mindset, which I think
Absolutely.
there's much to be said for that. And to your point, social media, great way to get our word out. If we don't tell people we're here, they're not going to know. And
Mhm.
just word of mouth, doing good work,
Sure.
and other people hearing your voice, hearing your story, hearing your offering, and telling the next person. So great information there. So, in addition to all of this, you also developed the Soul Powered Journey, which is this unique framework. You developed it. Can you give us an overview of that? How did it come to be, and what is it?
Absolutely. So the soul powered life experience, life journey, whatever we want to call it, really is about learning to live our soul purpose, learning to listen to what makes our hearts sing, what makes us excited to get out of bed in the morning. And what I found through my journey, my personal journey, as well as my work journey, is in therapy, historically, we were just trained in mindset work, right? I mean, that's ultimately what psychology is: psyche, the mind, it's the science of the mind. So we were taught all these frameworks and all these skill sets. And slowly we've been shifting into the body as well. The way that I see things is the mind is the doorway into the body. We have to get our mind on board to let our body down regulate enough so that we can drop in and start to feel the things that are happening sensory wise. The
Mhm.
body, the body and the mind together are then the doorways into the soul. When our body feels safe, when we peel back some of these layers of trauma, when we release some of the constriction that's happening in ourselves, then we can drop into the soul and we can start to feel what makes us feel alive, what makes us excited for the day, what makes us excited to get out of bed in the morning and move throughout our days. And that's what soul power really is. It's like shifting from this is what excites me and fulfills me and brings me joy and brings me passion. That's what soul powered living is, living from that
Mhm.
purpose.
So, what would a session look like then? And folks, this is a podcast, those of you who are listening, for business owners. And so to develop your own framework, I mean, good on you. And, I think a lot of us have ways of thinking about the work, but we don't put it into a framework. So, how were you able to do that?
So, through my experience and through my studies and my trainings, I really tapped into the chakra system. And whether we want to call it energy centers or chakras, it doesn't really matter. But I really honed in on the chakra system. And there are different energy centers that have different gifts and different wounds. And so it really started with tapping into that. And it really saw this as a framework of helping us to release the different wounds, release the different traumas at each of these parts in our body, at each of these parts in our story. So, for instance, the root chakra is all about structure, safety, and stability. We hold a lot of trauma about our younger years trauma. We hold a lot of trauma about finances and money and safety. And if that solid foundation isn't there, we can't move up the chakra system. We can't move up the layers of the body, the layers of the energy center. And of course, this makes sense for trauma, right? If we don't feel safe in our environment, if we aren't properly nourished in our body, if we aren't meeting our basic needs, our body is going to continue to live in survival mode. And so if we don't create this foundation to start with, we can't go deeper to actually heal the trauma. And so I use this framework of the chakra system to really start to support my clients in understanding and exploring what traumas are held within the body around these energy centers and around these gifts and these wounds of these energy centers. Whether you want to focus on the energy centers or not, it doesn't matter. It's a framework in which to help you slowly peel back the layers, heal the different traumas so we can get deeper and deeper and deeper into ourself and access that soul power.
Hmm. That sounds incredible. And as we know, that's where trauma lives. This mind body separation, I think, has begun to evaporate more and more in people's minds. We understand more. Hopefully, people in the field and hopefully people out in the world understand that more. So you're speaking to people's experience in a way that makes sense to them, right? Because some people will hear chakra and soul journey and think, oh my, but you're speaking about it in a way that makes sense. You're talking about mind, body, nervous system regulation, spirit, all things that live within us that help us with healing. And so you
Absolutely.
took what you were observing in your clients, what worked, and you developed a framework that speaks to people and will help people
Absolutely.
understand what you're trying to accomplish. So have you
Absolutely.
published this? Have you copyrighted it? How did you go about this process?
I haven't, which is so bad. I do have a trademark on Soul Powered Life Journey. I haven't written a book yet. I'm in the process of writing a book. I just love the work that I do so much that sometimes it's really hard for me to sit on a computer and like type it out because so much of what I do is just between the connection. And that's where my heart sings. That's where I am happiest. And so I sit at my computer, I'm like, I know nothing. I do nothing. I help no one. I have no, like, I just, my mind goes blank because I'm so in the moment in these sessions
Um,
that I've had to start recording some of them because clients will be like, "Can
mm,
you repeat that?" And I'll be like, I really can't because I have no idea what just flew out of my mouth right now. I know it hit and I know it landed and I know it's supported, but I don't remember it because it just came out because it was in this moment. And that's how I
Mhm.
live my life. And for me, that's my soul power is living my life in this moment. And so I have had to start recording the sessions so that clients can play them back and hear that message again.
I love that. That's great. And again, part of what I like about this is it's kind of antithetical to what we're taught, right? Which
Mhm.
is everything has to have, a dozen double-blind randomized clinical trials, and it takes 17 years for something to go from idea to being published and blah, blah, blah. And believe me, folks, I am a fan of some of those. But to your point, I think for those of us who have been doing therapy or coaching for a while, part of what we know is if we are very in the moment, we're not thinking about a framework, we're not thinking about a theory. We're in the moment with the client, and that's what's really most effective. So, to your point, as a clinician, and folks, I think this is true for all of us. I have folks who work on my team who are um, art therapists. Now there's theory, there's published books, there's all kinds of things that go along with that, but they're very in the moment with the client, and that tends to be what's most healing. So for you, you figured out how you could offer that in this way. So tell us a little bit more about this mind-body connection, and how can someone begin to offer that to clients if they decide they want to do so? Are you trained in somatic experiencing? Is that the
I am.
Yeah.
And part of it, that was such a huge part of my journey is going through yoga teacher training and somatic experiencing training in
Mhm.
realizing part of the thing that made me really open my eyes to licensure and what's empirically studied is somatic experiencing is not empirically studied. Like we can't bill insurances for a somatic experiencing session, which is so comical to me since it's been around since what the 60s or 70s. But
Mhm.
because of the nature of the body, we can't research it
Mhm.
that
Right,
well. We can't
right.
find, and to your point, like just because it can't be researched and quantified doesn't mean it doesn't work. And so really being able to
Right.
expand outside of the box of what therapy taught us. And yes, I can never unlearn it. And so I released my license, but I had to come to peace with that doesn't mean I unlearned everything I was taught. That doesn't mean my education is worthless. It doesn't mean any of that because that is part of my story, that's part of me. And I can bring that into my somatic work. I can combine these things together and really support my clients holistically and in this whole mind body way. So, for anybody wanting to begin this connection with the mind body, for me, my recommendation is start doing it for yourself first. I'm always
Mm.
amazed when I hear stories about people who are in the helping professions, whether coaches or therapists or anybody who have never spent time on the couch, who have never been in therapy themselves. And it's shocking to me that this is allowed, this is permitted in any way, but it absolutely is. Nobody
Mhm.
looked at my history and said, have you ever been in therapy before I became a therapist? I had been, but
Mm.
nobody asked me that question.
Mm.
And so for me, most of my journey is because I've been there. I'm
Mm.
helping other entrepreneurs who are transitioning from one field to the next. I'm helping people move through trauma in a way that I've moved through trauma. And I think that's part of what makes the work I do so powerful is I'm not doing it from this high level, I was trained in this, so I know how to do it perspective. I'm like, no, I've trained in this and I've moved through it myself. And now I'm bringing it to you. Because
Mm.
I tried all of these things out. I studied the chakras on myself first. I tried all of these
Mhm.
things out on myself first. So I'd really encourage people to practice somatics for themselves. Yeah, go to some trainings, get some education on what somatics is, and practice it within yourself. Feel what it feels like. So you can then guide your clients or your whoever they are through that and be like, oh, I remember feeling that. And this is what would have been supportive for me, or this is what was supportive for me that my person did
Mm.
for me too.
Mhm.
And start bringing that into it. But
Mhm.
I would never recommend somebody just go to training and start doing it without first having practiced it themselves.
Yeah, 100%. Right. When I was training in EMDR, I found two different EMDR therapists,
Hmm.
very different styles, and I was a client of theirs so that I could see what that was like. It was probably even more valuable than the training that I did, which, we know is often the case. So in Illinois, and I think some other states, people can't practice somatic experiencing or EMDR or even trauma-informed yoga as long as we can document the medical necessity. So it's interesting that in certain states, I think you can, and in certain states you can't.
So I think it was changed. And what I will say, and I would have you look into, it wasn't so much, yes, Arizona told me one thing. I think it's different now, but it's insurance will not pay for strict EMDR. Insurance will, so anybody who's doing insurance pay, you can't just bill insurance. You can bill somebody private pay, absolutely. I mean, that has no limits apparently, but you can't bill insurance. If somebody's doing insurance, you cannot bill an EMDR, you cannot bill a somatic experiencing or a yoga session through insurance. It would have to go through private pay at that point.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, folks, make sure you double check with the insurance carrier if you're going to do any work to make sure that it's covered. I think that's a fair point, Carah, for sure. What I'm thinking is this kind of work, especially right now, given our world order or disorder or whatever, could be really useful for therapists because we're sitting and we're listening, or business owners, practice owners, we're sitting, we're listening, we're absorbing, we're taking this in. I remember when I was in graduate school, I had two neighbors. They were both therapists and they both had these horrible autoimmune conditions. And I kept talking to therapists who had been practicing for a long time, who were retiring early because they were sick. And now I think what we know is we have to, as therapists, take care of ourselves, take care of our bodies. So, how would this be applicable to a practice owner or a therapist who's absorbing people's stories all day long? And it's vicarious trauma, secondary trauma, plus layering on just what we've had in our lives, what we're absorbing from the world. How would you see that? And how would somebody work with you if that was what they needed?
Yeah, so the majority of clients I have are business owners and a lot are therapists or coaches because I always tell my clients, every therapist has a coach or a therapist themselves. Like we all are, we should be. And that is part of taking care of, and that is part of our ethical responsibility, if you ask me, is that
Mhm.
we need to be seeing this because your point exactly is we are hearing so much. And I remember leaving my office after a full day of clients and people wanting to call and talk to me, and I'd be like, I have no words left. I literally have no words left. I cannot hold space for you, friend. I love you dearly, but I don't have time right now. And it's that boundary. It's that how do we replenish ourselves? How do we fill from the overflow? For me, the most important part of my day is the morning. And it always
Mhm.
has been. I fill my cup first thing in the morning. I go for my walk. I do my meditation. I do my yoga. I do whatever I do. I journal. I feed into myself first so that when I'm moving through with my clients, I'm feeding from the overflow. I'm supporting them from the overflow of abundance because I've already taken care of myself. Because I remember days when I'd say, oh, I'll do that when I get home. And I would never, I'd be too exhausted, which means I was just depleted all day and then just collapsed at night. And that's nervous system dynamics, right? That's, literally going into collapse mode, going into dorsal vagal response and
Mhm.
just crashing on my couch in front of the TV with a frozen pizza because I hadn't filled my cup and I hadn't had any way to fill my cup. So personal
Mhm.
boundaries are so important and meeting your needs. And this is the first thing I always start with my clients on first. Again, it's that root chakra, it's that root energy center, it's that foundation. Where are your basic needs? How are you
Mhm.
meeting them? Your needs for a safe living environment, safe work environment, nutrition, hydration, rest. Where are you at on the spectrum? Because we can't do any work if you're depleted all the time. So we need to work on healing this piece first, going for a
Mhm.
walk, whatever that might be to fill your cup up first, to fill it back up so that again, you're not just continually depleting. This is why burnout happens. This is a lot of what I work with. This is why burnout happens, especially in helping professions. We call it compassion fatigue, we call it whatever we call it in those professions, but you have a big heart, you're doing this job for a reason. You have to be able to receive that back to you, whether that's through
Mhm.
professional services, through yourself, through community, whatever that is. You have to be
Mm.
taking care of yourself.
I love that. That's fabulous. And boy, we think of it as if I have time, I'll take that walk. If I have time, I'll go to that exercise class. If I have time, I'll do a little bit of yoga or something restorative for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to, boy, if that becomes the hygiene. I remember once I was at a networking event, or no, I was just displaying I had a table somewhere or something exhibiting. And this woman walked up who, to my eye, looked like she was probably in her 60s-ish. And she had these incredible muscles in her arms. And I said, how do you do that? I'm so impressed. She said, because exercise for me is hygiene. You wouldn't get up and leave your house in the morning without brushing your teeth. Why would you get up and not do what's going to help you feel better? And to your point, be prepared for the day.
And I just love how, like, I mean, how often, and I was guilty of this, I'll be honest with you. I was seeing 37 clients a week and,
Yep.
eating protein bars between clients and having 10-minute breaks between clients all day. And that's that. And we tell our clients to do one thing and then we do another thing. And they feel the dissonance, they feel the disconnect between that. They don't know what it is, but they feel like your words aren't landing with them because you're not living them. And when you start living your words, it completely shifts the dynamic of your entire practice and the work with your clients because
Mhm.
you show up differently. And if we're always coming in early or staying late because that client needs that extra appointment time or whatever, versus having the boundaries with our schedule. If we are not scheduling lunch because we're putting a client in there, and so we're wolfing down, like I said, a protein bar or a bag of chips on our 10-minute break between clients, we're going to show up differently, whether we think we are or not, but our energy is going to be different. And that's what's so powerful when we can start, again, hygiene with our energy, filling our cup first. We show up differently. We may not think we do, but our energy is different, whether we feel it or not. They do.
Right. Absolutely. So even if somebody, for whatever their circumstance, has to go back to back to back to back throughout the day, it's financial, they're covering for somebody who's sick, whatever the case may be, starting their day. I start my day with just doing some spinal twists in my bed. And that's it.
Absolutely.
I do that and then I get up and I have an exercise class 3 days a week or I take a walk. That was not my natural way. I would far prefer to just get a few extra minutes of sleep or something else. But to your point, if we can, and no shame if we can't, but if we can, what a difference that will make throughout the day for our clients, for ourselves, prevent burnout. And folks, as we know, being a therapist, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And especially if you are a practice owner, boy, starting your day by filling your own cup. And my brother Mark, who is our COO, he talks about how he ignores his email inbox first thing in the morning. So many of us
Yeah.
hop on and we're like, okay, what's happening? He always takes care of his outbox. What does he want to get done before he starts getting involved in the weeds
Beautiful.
of everybody else's demands, right? So, however
Beautiful.
we think about it, making sure that's a priority. I can see this methodology being really helpful for folks, the soul powered journey, folks. If people would like to connect with you, Carah, how can they do so? And we'll have it in the show notes. What's the best way for people to learn about you and to connect with you?
Absolutely. I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on LinkedIn, and my email, and you can put all of that into the show notes. But if you do want to see a little bit about me, and I will be really honest, I am pretty sassy and straightforward with
Oh,
my languaging. So
like it.
some people may be turned off on that. My people love it, but I'm pretty straightforward and pretty blunt a lot of the times because I'm not here to like placate everybody. So a lot of my content is going to be a little bit maybe sassy for some people, and that's okay. But
Okay.
you can email me, you can get a sense of my tone and my nature through that. But yeah, just connecting with me on social media. I'd love to hear from you, love to hear answer questions or support in any way possible. And I too, I actually just avoid my phone altogether for the first couple hours I'm awake in the morning for that reason as well, as like it's too tempting to hop on and start doing work as well.
It is too tempting. That is true. So, folks, it sounds like the takeaway is number one, if you are doing virtual work with people, don't forget to include their body. You can do so, it can be successful.
Mhm.
Check out Carah's Soul Powered Journey. Check her out on all of those ways that she has just listed. We'll make sure you can get a hold of those and maybe consider doing some of these things for yourself. Boy, I am intrigued. I think this sounds delightful. Carah Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your time. And all of you who have been here with us today, thank you for listening. Come back again next time. Be well.